Hello, and welcome to episode 31 of A Week in Watches. I'm your host, Zach Weiss, co-founder of Worn & Wound. I guess it's 2023, so Happy New Year. This episode is part 2 of our special A Year in Watches review of 2022. Last week we covered mostly the biggest watch brands out there, big groups, etc. This week we'll still have a few of those because we couldn't fit them all in, but there'll be more micro and independents as well. There's still a ton to cover, and frankly, we're still gonna miss plenty. This week's episode is brought to you by the Windup Watch Shop. The retail side of Worn & Wound, Windup Watch Shop is an authorized retailer of over 25 watch brands, as well as many other exciting items. Stay tuned to later in this episode for more on the Windup Watch Shop. All right, let's get back to 2022. Serica stayed style forward. The still relatively young Serica showed what a few years of maturity can do. They started the year with a revisit to their 4512 field watch. They took their California dial variant and rendered in black and white enamel for a tuxedo style. It was unique, bold, and even better, priced at just 575 euros, which is a great value for enamel, especially one featuring a Soprod automatic movement. They then launched a new color of the 5303-3 diver. A blue dial is always welcome, but what made this special was the pale blue-gray ceramic insert. You just haven't seen something quite like this before. Combined with the already unique layout, it's just quite special. As a grand finale, however, they launched a totally new model, tying many of their design themes together. Their first GMT, the 8315, a vintage watch from another universe, the combination of a modified version of their dive dial with a lollipop GMT hand, their standard fat arrow handset, and a bicolor ceramic bezel just sings. They didn't go for the standard and frankly not terribly useful rotating 24-hour bezel. Rather, they went for a day-night bezel. Maybe that's more useful day-to-day, maybe not. Honestly, I don't know. But it certainly is different and was very nice looking. This is also a chronometer and available in left or right-handed models, and at 1,575 euros without VAT, not badly priced either. This actually might be one of my favorite watches from 2022, I won't lie. MING celebrated their 5th anniversary. MING launched a couple watches this year, a few watches. They started off with actually a brand new version of their GMT, but then they went on to their 37.07 Mosaic dial. This is a new and apparently more easily manufactured take on their sort of abstract Mosaic dial concept, which features layers of shapes on crystals, kind of floating crystals, for a dynamic, exotic look. It also has a very cool lume pattern when it glows. And then there was the 37.04, one of their hot varietals from their sort of like cave projects. This single register mono pusher utilized a gorgeous movement that had been originally used in Cartier's Tortue Monopoissard. I saw both of these in person earlier this year, and they were just absolutely stunning, just a whole new level for the brand. Ressence got back to basics, or well, whatever that means for a brand as avant-garde as Ressence. They launched the 8C model, which is a completely new line of reduced, stripped-down versions of their iconic orbiting regulator display. Gone is the date, the seconds, or anything but hour and minute. Yet this glimmering 42mm titanium timepiece loses none of Ressence's singular signature style and charm. Conveniently, the 8C also marked a new entry point for the brand at 12,500 CHF. So not inexpensive, but a lot less than many of the other Ressences. Seiko holds back while Seiko 5 secures its position. This was actually a quiet year for Seiko proper, with mostly new colorways of existing models, special and limited editions, Save the Oceans models, Glacial Ice, etc. They did just launch the 110th anniversary of the Laurel model, which looks pretty fantastic. It features an enamel dial, a 37.5mm case in the style of the original pocket watch conversion-esque sort of thing, as well as a recreation of the original strap that is sort of a mix between a Bund and a pass-through. Limited to 2,500 pieces and priced at $1,800, that could be one to get. They also launched a trio of new prospect divers, which we're always fond of seeing. The SPB 313, 315, and 317 is what they were called, and they referred to the 6105-8000 vintage references. So not the Willard, but a similar reference with a symmetrical case. There wasn't too much else, however, that stood out from Seiko, so we're hoping for a big 2023. In fact, come on, Seiko, let's have a big 2023. But Seiko 5 had a really killer year. They started with a fantastic LE with a fantastic brand celebrating their 10th anniversary, wink wink, that was us, but hardly stopped there. They did a killer throwback to the Seiko sonars with collage artist Kosuke Kawamura. While the originals might have been chronographs, these three-handers looked absolutely amazing. I'm genuinely sorry that I did not get one of them. They also teamed up with Rowing Blazers and Eric Wind again for a series of bright and bombastic SK dress models. Also very nice, a lot of fun. But the watches that really stood out this year were the Seiko 5 Sports GMTs. You probably saw that coming. They combined the tried and true 007 style case with Seiko's new 4R34 caliber, adding a collar GMT function. They also included a friction-fit 24-hour bezel, which despite being trendy to not like, feels great. Take my word for it. Maybe I just like friction bezels, whatever. Best part, they were under $500. This created a new standard and entry for affordable GMTs. Seiko 5 secured their place this year as the great brand to both get into mechanical watches with. Had this GMT been around 10 years ago, I 100% would have jumped on it instantly. But then also as just a fun, nostalgic brand to get into or get back to at any point in your watch journey. There's no way that you didn't see these watches this year and think, wow, these are a lot of fun. Hopefully, next year we'll see more along this line from Seiko 5. Longines balanced elegance and ingenuity. Longines put quality over quantity this year. They started by adding a GMT to their popular Spirit Time line with a new model called the Zulu Time. Inside was a 72-hour chronometer with a silicone balance spring and local jumping hours for a true GMT experience, which, you know, as we've probably said before, we really like to see. Nice start, but what came next was some really big news. Longines revived the high-frequency Ultrachron Diver, a remake of a barrel-shaped sports watch from the 1960s. While aesthetically a pleasing throwback, the movement was the real star of the show here. The L8 36.6 is a 5 Hz or 36,000 beats per hour caliber. This is not the only high beat in Swatch Group's lineup, because they launched that crazy chrono chime movement, which was also a high beat. But I believe this is the only high beat three-hander currently in their collection, and certainly the only one you'll be able to get. Boasting greater precision, they don't just promise it, they have the watches independently certified as ultra chronometers, a testing for which seems to be a mix of the standard chronometer test with a 15-day torture test of sorts. Either way, with a price tag starting at $3,200, these are a unique high beat offering in a market with very few options, and most likely the best value for a high beat as well. At windupwatchshop.com, you'll find a wide selection of watches and watch brands with a special focus on great value and design. From Younghans and their elegant Max Bill line to G-Shock and their overbuilt Tool watches to Oris and their Swiss heritage, there's likely a watch for you. But if you're not looking for a watch, the Windup Watch Shop has you covered as well. With straps of all kind, including Italian and American-made leather two-piece straps, as well as the Adapt American-made nylon mill straps and many others, there's always a strap for you. There are also travel and storage solutions such as pouches, rolls, and tubes for when you're on the go, and rugged tool watch boxes for your home. There's also strap changing tools and general everyday carry, from pens to pocket knives and flashlights, all available in the same shop. To check that all out, head to windupwatchshop.com and be sure to follow along on Instagram at windupwatchshop. Oris didn't bore us. Sorry for that terrible header. The script got very long and I ran out of ideas. Oris released so many watches last year. So many. Looking back, I thought some of these came out a year or two ago. As is usual, a lot of these launches fit into pre-existing lines. There was Aquases, Pointer Dates, Diver 65s, etc. Far too many to go through. But there was some new hotness too. First was the Rectangular. A series of 4 watches, these slender rectangles had gorgeous Art Deco dials and case details. They were very unexpected, as Oris hadn't put out anything dressy in a while, let alone anything rectangular. From there, Oris went the completely opposite direction with the Pro Pilot X Caliber 400s. A smaller, slimmed-down sibling of the Pro Pilot X from a few years ago, these stealthy titanium watches featured their 5-day automatic in-house movement. I still kind of wish the dials matched the faceted cases a little bit more. Nevertheless, a very cool new line that will be exciting to watch and see develop. But the watch that I think was most memorable from the brand was also decidedly the weirdest watch they've made in years. The Holstein Edition 2022 Full Steel. This strange, quirky 36.5 integrated steel sports watch was pure 90s throwback. A recreation of a pre-millennium oddball, not just weird looks, it featured their awesome push-button dual-time caliber 960, allowing for independent hour adjustment on a secondary time subdial at 3. which is just a plain awesome feature. A limited edition of 250 units, I believe they sold out already. I hope this shows that Oris will be taking more risks in the future, because I'm here for it. Laurier launches a new line. Our fellow NYC friends at Laurier had a few exciting pieces this year, mostly updates to existing lines, slight changes, refinements perhaps, such as the Explorer dial on the Falcon 3, so nice. But in larger news, they launched the Zephyr, an Art Deco era dress watch with a beautiful tonneau case, only 2 hands, très chic, and a tasteful stamped guilloche dial. At 31 by 42 by 8 millimeters and powered by the Miyota 9029, they might just be the best option for an affordable dress watch out there. And they came in at only $499, which is a fantastic price as well. Baltic does what Baltic does best. They make nice watches and no one seems to complain about it. This year also marked their 5th anniversary, which they commemorated first with a dual crown LE. They then went into new territory with the Aquascape Titanium, a larger and more contemporary version of their diver. It had a gorgeous brushed ceramic insert with 300 meters water resistance, a timeless tool watch, if you will. Then they stepped up into the world of Swiss-made chronographs. Their 39.5 millimeter tri-convex line, their name, not ours, featured mid-century style with a modern flair, great proportions all around. The first version was a limited edition collaboration of 300 pieces made with Peter Otto. This also featured 2 mechanical flyback stopwatches, which was a really cool addition. They then launched Panda and Inverse Panda varieties, and they all sold out, sadly. So we're gonna have to see what Baltic does next year, and it'll probably all sell out quickly regardless. Christopher Ward got the attention they deserved. Christopher Ward had a stellar year by all accounts. They kicked it off with the launch of the C65 Aquitaine line, a restyling of their vintage-inspired dive watches, these pulled from different sources, and namely the 50 Fathoms, for a new look that, while heavily vintage, still had its own sort of identity. They also featured these incredibly beautiful curved sapphire bezel inserts, upping the level of finish on these as well. They had plenty of other releases this year too, but the one that stands out is the C1 Bel Canto. Bet you saw that coming. I've probably already talked too much about this watch, but hey, they deserve it. A taste of the high end and the exotic for the rest of us. The C1 Bel Canto featured an in-house designed sonnerie complication in the form of an hourly chime that was based on their also in-house developed jump hour from years past. To make things even cooler, they put the hammer and gong on the dial. In doing so, they moved the hour and minutes to a smaller eccentric dial just below 12. Unexpected, quite shocking in ways, and a bit bizarre. It was a huge hit, selling out 2 batches of 300 in just 2 days, and it got the attention of a wider swath of collectors, including those with higher end tastes and collections that might have overlooked Christopher Ward previously. I've always felt that Christopher Ward was an underrated brand. Now hopefully that is starting to change. Needless to say, very excited to see what they'll be doing in 2023. Zodiac soups up the Super Seawolf. Building off of their popular Super Seawolf line of dive watches, Zodiac played with materials and specs this year. First, they actually launched a whole new subline of the Seawolf, the Pro Diver, an ISO certified 300 meter chronometer diver. At 42 millimeters, it took the Seawolf into more modern territory, as did some of the design cues found throughout. However, while more pro, they kept their playful use of color, which is great to see. A few months later, they launched a follow-up with the Pro Diver limited edition in titanium. They followed that up with a couple of Seawolves with meteorite dials, an unexpected material choice. The shattered, crystallized patterns of the ancient space rocks worked very well in the sports watch design. But their last material foray was perhaps the least expected and most exciting. The Super Seawolf ceramic was made as a bit of a flex. Not a material often seen under 2K, though not unheard of either. The Seawolf ceramic is a sexy high gloss black that was almost a touch gray too, kind of like a gunmetal. It featured a deep inky blue dial and also a chronometer grade movement inside. At $1,695, it was a pretty cool offering from the brand that we certainly did not see coming. Miyota changes the GMT game for good. Okay, this one is a bit different as it's not a watch brand, rather a movement brand, but I think this is worth marking as it's going to change things. Miyota launched the 9075 True or Traveler's GMT, meaning it has a local jumping hour hand. For a long time, only Rolex, Tudor, Grand Seiko, occasionally Alpina had true GMTs. There might have been others. Ball and Oris had like push button varieties, but it's sort of different. They were very uncommon. ETA Swatch added a few for their brands. Mito, Hamilton, and Longines, as well as Omega, actually has some local jump hours. That's within the last couple of years. And then Seiko added a 6R variety that is used in a very very rarely in their Presage line. But there were no option for third-party brands, no true GMT movements available outside of these sort of large groups. Miyota making one not only will allow for affordable sub 1K options, but also options in general for true GMTs. This is my personal preference, but I find local jumping hour much more useful than the kind of collar GMT. It's the fastest, easiest way of adjusting time while traveling, or during daylight savings or anything like that, because you don't have to reset the minute hand, so you sort of keep the accuracy of your time before. This is actually why Grand Seiko does this now on their 9F GMTs, as well as newer 9F three-hand movements. Ming actually modified a movement for this when they made their 1709, but that was only one model. It was a two-hander with a local jumping hour hand. Very uncommon. Anyway, we've already seen Bulova, the Boulder Odyssey Freediver, the Jack Mason Strato Timer, and the Gavox Longitude come out using the Miyota 9075. These are 4 watches, each with completely distinct personalities. This is definitely just the beginning, so hopefully something we'll see a lot more of this year. And that's it for Year in Watches 2022. 2022 is officially over. It's time to get back to the present. Next week, we'll get back to our normal format, just a week in watches. Please be sure to check out Worn and Wound Daily for news, reviews, and everything else about watches. Like and subscribe to this video if you found it useful. We'll see you next time.